Guys, from the Thoughtful Gardener, it's my favorite time of year, which is seed starting time. We have a very short growing season here in central Pennsylvania. Our last frost date last year was May 15th. You can see your last frost date by going to garden.org. This year it says it's going to be April 23rd. I'm questioning that. You can see right behind me, there's snow still on the ground, and Puxatawny Fields said we're in for 6 more weeks of winter. So I'm going to assume that he's correct and they're wrong, and we're not going to be able to put these in the ground for a while. But once you look at your seed package, there is an instruction manual basically right there on the back. And what you can see is that it tells you exactly how long before you can put it in the ground you should start it inside. And these say 8 to 12 weeks, so we're right in that sweet spot of starting these inside. So I'm going to show you the inexpensive way to do this, and then you can certainly buy more expensive kits if you want, and we'll do one with those kits too so you can see what that looks like. But today we're going to talk about starting the eggplant. You can see Lynx and Scout in the background. It's snowing, so they're a little bored, so they're going to be helping out today. So the first thing that we want to know is how long is this going to take before it's going to be ready to go outside. So this is going to sprout in 10 to 15 days. So in 2 weeks, we should see something going on here. The ideal temperature is 75 to 95 degrees. Now that's not air temperature, that's the ground temperature. So if you don't have a thermometer for your soil, I highly recommend you get one. That's awesome. Seed depth is 1/4 inch, so we're just gonna barely cover this seed. And the spacing is gonna be 18 inches apart. So not a problem there. We're gonna put a few seeds in the container because if one doesn't work, hopefully the other ones will. And it's gonna need a minimum sun hour of 8 to 12 hours to grow. So this is going to be some full sun all the way, and most vegetable gardens are going to require at least 5 hours and ideally 8 hours sun a day. So when you're thinking about positioning the garden, you definitely want to pick a sunny spot, and you want to pick it kind of close to the house so that it's easy for you to maintain. If it's too far away, you're not going to do it. Just talking from personal experience. When I was a kid, we had a vegetable garden, and it was literally on the other side of our wooded lot. We never went there after we planted it, and we worked our butts off, so don't do that. So what are you going to need? Seeds, and we're going to need a container. Now, again, you don't have to go out and get fancy containers. This is a reused container. You just want to make sure it's nice and clean, so warm, soapy water. And then I like to keep the newspaper circulars that come in the mail and cut them into little squares like this to cover up the holes in the pots, like so. So you can see I've covered that up with a piece of newspaper. Now, could we use garden soil? You could, but that is not ideal for seeds, and I'm going to tell you 2 reasons why. Reason number 1 is that it's too heavy, and reason number 2 is it's possible that that soil has pathogens in it, which is not ideal for seeds. So this is actually called a soilless mixture, and you can see it's nice and fluffy and light because it's made out of coconut coir, or it might be made out of peat moss. Coconut coir is definitely more environmentally responsible because it's recycled coconuts. And you can see it's got nice light little perlite in there, so it feels nice and light and fluffy. So it's really ideal for a tiny little seed that is going to have to push its way out. So this is from Gardener Supply. I love Gardener Supply. I have had good results with them. They were a little iffy last year on shipping, but they've gotten a lot better. And you can see the garden cart I got, which my husband's really happy about because I'm not doing this in the kitchen sink right now. Yay. So it keeps everything nice and tidy while I'm working on seed starting and repotting of plants. So this is different though, this seed starting mix, than potting soil. So potting soil is really heavy because it's got, again, a soilless mixture, but it's got heavy soil. So this is not what we want when we're starting seeds. We want the light, fluffy stuff. It's going to be a little more expensive, but to be honest, that's probably all I'm going to need for the whole season because it's a lot for starting seeds. And then to put over the top, some people like vermiculite. I'm just going to caution you that depending on where you're sourcing your plants and you're sourcing your product, vermiculite has been known to be cancerous. So if you're going to use vermiculite, get it from a reputable source and wear a mask. What I would recommend if you want to cover your seeds with something other than the soil starting mix is to use chicken grit. Chicken grit, you could buy a bag of it for about $10. It's gonna last you the rest of your life, even if you share it with a friend, because it's like 100 pounds of this stupid stuff. It's gonna be heavy as lead, so you're gonna need a truck. So if you don't have one, maybe your friend does, and you can offer to just exchange them out some chicken grit at the top of the seed pot. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna put the seeds starting mix here, like so. Now, any hard coat seeds, I like to soak them overnight. That just gives them a little bit of a boost when we're starting the seeds. Now, these are gonna be uber tiny. As you know, it said the seed depth was only 1/4 of an inch. It means the seed is really super small. Exactly what I thought. You can see it's really uber tiny. So we're gonna take a couple of these and pop them into our container like so, and then just spread them out. Now I put 3 in here, and again it said only 1/4 of an inch. And then we're gonna make sure we water this thoroughly. Now I had already stirred some water into this mix before I got started, because typically when you pull this out of the bag, it's quite dry, and seeds need moisture to grow. Seeds and moisture go together like peanut butter and jelly. You don't want it soggy, but at the same time, you don't want to let it dry out. That is death to seeds. They're very vulnerable, so you don't want to do that. So make sure that you mark this pot. I am guilty of growing things and not marking it. Just learn from my mistakes. It's a total pain in the butt to figure out, well, what was that again? Make sure that you label it and put your label into the container, or you can use a piece of tape here or whatever, but make sure you put a label in it so you know what it is. And then we're gonna cover this up. So I really like, for little pots like this, if you can use a piece of that saran wrap that's kind of sticky. I like that one. That one seems to work really, really great because it kind of clings to the outside of the container. And this one is not going to do anything for 8 to 10 days. Now we're just going to put it in a sunny window. Now I'm really fortunate to have south facing windows, so that's plenty of sun for what I need this to do. But a bright light is all we need at this point. Now again, you can get fancy and get grow lights, and certainly that will help this process along. But for right now, all this seed needs is a little bit of bright light, a little bit of nice wet soil, and a little cover. Once it starts to germinate, which we saw is going to be in about 8 to 10 days, we're going to take that plastic wrap off. But then it's going to need to remain moist, and I recommend you water it from the bottom. So you can see I have these little trays. That's perfect. You could also set it in a saucer and water it from the bottom, and that way it doesn't wash your seed away. Hope that's helpful. Garden Properly. Take care.